your mic levels. So why don't you say your full name for me?
My name is Jake Barrett. I am representative of the 1st District in Syracuse Common Council.
And are you working another job?
I have a day job. I am the facilities manager for Catholic Charities of Onondaga County. I operate some federal HUD contracts to house homeless men.
That's awesome. I just talked. Do you know Sarah Kaliva at all? She works at Catholic Charities. Are you going to there's an event tonight at the Landmark?
Catholic Charities has upwards of 300 employees. I did hear about this social event. My wife would like to see me a little bit more often.
Okay. All right, so to begin, why don't you talk to me a little bit about why you're running for re-election?
I think probably a better starting point, Tom, would be is why would someone, and I think you probably asked the same question of the challengers and the individuals who are running for office for the first time, is what brought them to the point that they thought that they would be good for, suitable for, and ambitious of running for office. I ran for the first time 2 years ago. I've always sort of been around civic work. I was chairman of the board of Onondaga County Resource Recovery Agency. I've worked in social service. I was in the environmental business as a alternative fuels manager for international utility company. And so I saw some of the issues that had to do with the economics, the environmental, and the engineering of how we're going to take our carbon-based economy into something else. So understanding some of the problems in society and engineering and that sort of thing gives us all a better idea of, geez, how are some of the other problems going to be addressed? So 2 years ago when I ran, I have a background in which it's always problems that you're trying to solve. And I thought, geez, let's see how I can help in our government. So I ran for an office that was held by a young man, and the voters decided that perhaps somebody with experience was better than somebody who didn't have the experience.
Okay, correct. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about, you were just explaining some of the ways that you wanted to tackle some of these energy problems. I was wondering if in the last 2 years you've gotten a chance to do that at all.
The form of government that the city has, it's very similar to the federal level. There's the judges, the representatives, and the executives, which in this case is called the mayor. We approve bills that are generated in the administration. Very infrequently does the legislature have the ability to put forth their own spending bills. I'm quite active in area civic groups and community groups, environmental groups that are trying to do work of alternative energy and renewables. At this level, I think what best in the title of First District Common Councilor is helping the people in the First District, which there are 28,000 of, to help them with their basic issues of quality of life, sometimes called crime, DPW issues of streets, and some sort of job development that has something to do with the organic nature of the district. So in that case, it's the development of a business association for Nepalese people and some of the Africans, in doing some agricultural type vacant property development. So the people that in my district, I think I should pay attention more to them than what my personal ambitions of developing acres and acres and acres of photovoltaic cells. So I'm focused on constituent services and helping the district grow internally.
Okay. Can you name me some specific things that you've done that you are proud of and that you want to highlight? You know, this is something I'm responsible for, or something you voted for, or voted against.
So as there's 9 common councilors, there's 4 at large, there's 5 districts. I represent the 5th district. There's 9 committees that operate within the council. Airport, business development. In my particular case, I'm chair of the public safety committee, which has to do with the police, the fire, and on the other side of that is the citizens review board, which has to do with the oversight, the citizen oversight of the law enforcement side. So that component of the city budget, the police and fire, represents roughly 40% of the non-school budget. So having the law enforcement and the fire company, and there's been mammoth issues with both in the past 2 years, and all the bills that go with that. I think that there's some issues that come up with secondhand shops and ambulances and parking meters that fall under my purview, and to able to reconcile the needs of the city, the cutbacks of the budget, and maintaining some motivation and morale for those particular departments, you really have to craft an ability to work with a lot of department heads, and that's a full-time job.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to talk about crime because you brought it up. And Syracuse is really, it's bad, the homicides. And I'm getting my numbers from an article from Syracuse.com that came out in July. Like the number of homicides per 100,000 people. And we're the worst. So it's 2 times the national average. We're the worst in New York State. And there's been some high-profile homicides in your district on the north side. There are some good numbers, but I wanted to ask you about that a little bit, because that's actually it's one of, it's the one thing I was asking Joe Carney. It's one of his big things that he's focused on, and so I just want your take on that.
Tom, I believe you talked about murder. So I believe there's been, before the past weekend, I think there's been 13 murders.
There's 18 right now.
18, so it's accelerated, which is certainly above what last year's numbers were, significantly. The issues of crime can, and I hate to do this because all crime is bad, but there's the violent crime and then there's the nuisance crime, I call it. So, a lot of the shootings appear to be random. When they do investigations, and I'll use an example, on Butternut, which is the spine of the north side, there's both nuisance crime and murders, if we're addressing the murder question here. On Canal Street off of Butternut, which is there's 2 stores there. And I've been in touch with one, trying to help one. And the one across the street, an owner is less inclined to talk to me. So we put cameras up. And we focused in, and the cameras now that the police department is using have very high resolution. The quality of the cameras are getting significantly better, and the costs are going down. So we're able to do a better and more expansive program. Butternut's going to get 9 cameras from roughly the 700 block up to the 1300 block. One of the cameras is currently working right outside this Canal Street. So we focused the camera on the license plates of the vehicles that go into this store. We did a search. Police department did a search of the license plates that go into the store. Where these cars are registered have nothing to do with the radius of where the store's patrons normally would come from. So, if one would say that, and these people have some ability to be construed as undesirable in terms of the criminal element, that a lot of the crime that's coming into the north side from areas that are way outside of the north side. So are there no more murders on the north side? There could be, but I would submit that those murders are being done for other turf reasons, not related to the north side and their residents.
Okay. So the other thing that Joe mentioned, there's really two things. He's talking about crime, and then he talks about availability. He wants to be really available. Do you think that you are available enough for your constituents?
Somebody said I wasn't.
No one said that you weren't.
2 years ago, when I took office, I was asked a similar question in a Syracuse Housing Authority facility, and one of the women there said, "If I call you, you're going to get back to me?" And it was a reflex action. I said, "Ma'am, I'll get back to you within 24 hours." I've gone through my second log. It's a kind of a 6x10 copybook, and I keep a record of emails that I get and phone calls that I get filtered through the office here. So any questions that come up that the assistants here can handle, whether it's DPW or crime, whatever it is, they try to. But generally, I get a record of all calls that they make. So virtually anybody that calls me or calls my assistants here, I have returned that phone call. There's been a couple incidences this past winter related to a secondhand shop, and virtually, and there was mountains of email, and I pretty much can say that I replied, maybe not in a fashion that someone would want, but I replied to everyone that reached out to me. So accessibility is a nice trait. However, the ability to be accessible presumes that you know what to do with that. And with an experienced background and my ability to work with department heads, accessibility is great, but can you implement what the person calling you is asking? And I think that separates the difference.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for meeting with me. I just have 1/2 more questions, and that'll be it. I was wondering, can you talk a little bit about if you get reelected, what your future is with holding office? What do you want to continue to do? What do you want to do more of? What do you want to see more of? And in regards to that, I forgot the other thing I was going to ask, but we'll just start. Yeah, with there.
2 years in office. When you're younger, you think 2 years is an eternity. As we age, 2 years tends to be not a blink of the eye, but it certainly is a long weekend. And 2 years in office, the first year is, geez, where do I go? Where are these meetings held, and who's involved? I think at the end of the second year, you have some idea of, and certainly a lot of people in your family probably will affirm this, that, okay, where is the trouble areas within the areas that I can affect? What are those things that I can do to correct those problems? And sometimes they're very mundane, whether it's a corner store that you know, if they had somebody watching, whether it's a fixed camera, a phone camera, or whether it's contacting the federal alcohol, tobacco, and firearms to make sure that they have some idea of who the bad guys are in the corner. Because you can do that. But it took you 2 years to find out what's the best button to push when there's a problem. If there's an area that has some street work, well, geez, the land bank has 2 properties on that street. Let's go for those 2 properties first while we're improving the street. So there's a combined effort of improving the infrastructure and taking back and seizing properties and improving those properties. So until you have some idea of how the wheels and the gears of city work, so you can concentrate that knowledge in certain areas and get some timing together, that's what you learn with experience in office. So in my district, I'd like to be able to coordinate some of the help that is available for some of my constituents.
Okay, that's perfect. And I think you basically already answered the question, but did you want to expand at all upon some of the benefits of voting for someone who has more experience dealing with department heads, as you said, compared to someone who's young, who's there with the energy, but who doesn't have that sort of real world experience?
No one wants to discourage anyone from doing anything in life, as long as obviously it's within the bounds of normal societal behavior. But I think there's a time and place in which, in your life, that there's reachable goals and things in which you can actually learn, you can actually accomplish, you could actually get something under your belt as to, geez, I want to sink my teeth into whatever it might be. Maybe working literacy. I don't know what other people's ambitions are. I've done computer literacy programs on the South Side. So there was a whole range of things in which I saw that, geez, I'm capable of doing that. I know that I can help somebody on a larger stage to be able to do that, because I know all the problems of funding and the volunteers and the buildings closing early. So when you craft these programs that come in front of us, geez, somebody's got a good idea down in the school district, or somebody's got a good idea in Parks and Rec. Had you thought about this problem before you ask us to vote the money? So the committee process is a process in which you can take your life experiences and share them with people who, all good intentions aside, just never had that experience of what the issues were. And so here it is, as a citizen who's able to help other citizens. I've had a very extensive private sector background, a very, very extensive civic volunteer background, to be able to help some of my fellow citizens. And that's the way I look at it.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything else that you want to say that I didn't address?
Well, Tom, I certainly appreciate your ambitions in journalism. I know it's a dicey field these days, but you're doing a great job.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, because I love what I do. So,
good. Make sure you tell Dad about the last part.